September 17th, Gigantic Pop number 3. We're going to get this right one week. It's going to all work out. It's going to happen. I'm Glenn, here with Raj, here with Matt. Good to see you guys. It feels like it's been longer than a week. This week has felt like a month.
Yeah, a little bit.
Which is crazy. We're grown-ups. We got grown-up responsibilities. Raj is writing checks his ass can't cash on Twitter.
Isn't that not always the case? But no, it's going to happen. I made a bet, and if it turns out to be true, yeah, to the first 5 people that DM me, they will get a little PayPal. So, yeah.
Time out. What's the deal? I didn't see it.
Okay, so Raj said he was certain that Jade Cargill was not leaving AEW.
I just said
What you said? You'll bet.
I'll bet that she stays.
That's certain, Raj. Do you make a lot of bets that you're not certain about?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Must be nice.
Didn't you just go
70%?
Didn't you just go back to AEW?
She did her last match on Friday on Rampage.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
good for her.
But yeah, it sounds like she's WWE bound from these other reports. I had heard different, but it's one of those things where I no longer, when I hear stuff, I'm not second sourcing it anymore. It's not no longer my job. I'm retired. But I did hear from a good source that she was staying. But yeah, we'll see. But the word is that she's going to the Performance Center next week. I think it's a great move. I could see WWE making her a superstar. So
hell yes, God yes, she looks like a superhero.
Yeah, I felt like AEW, they got her to a certain level and didn't know exactly how to go beyond that.
And one other thing, which WWE would not have done, WWE very rarely will put a rookie out there like that has huge talent like that and has huge upside, huge potential. They give them a little bit more time to cook. A little bit, not a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas if you remember Jade's first few matches, you couldn't miss a lot of things that rightfully so she would mess up on because she was so green. She was so new. Like WWE won't make that mistake. They'll put her on TV when she's polished and ready to go, and she was going to make them so much money.
Yeah, I mean, she could be beyond WWE. She could be a movie star. So
anything, anything. You can't take your eyes off of her. She's a freak of nature physically. She's charismatic and cocky as hell with that character. I love that character.
Yeah.
And she looks like a thoroughbred, a true blue athlete that will whip your butt.
Yeah, she's great. I mean, I look forward to it. I'm curious what they do with her in WWE, especially if she's skipping NXT entirely, which I think she should.
Yeah,
her versus Charlotte, just when the time is right, obviously, and they build her properly. Physically speaking, it doesn't get much better than that. Both tall, very athletic, former college athletes, right? And look the part and are the part. That's be a good feud.
Yeah.
Or her versus Bianca, that's gonna be huge. Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, she's like all American. Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah.
And we had some good validation this week about what a draw women's wrestling is, especially in WWE. That NXT overrun with Becky Lynch beating Tiffany Stratton broke 1 million viewers, which for NXT is unheard of.
Yeah, it was a very good story they told, by the way.
Yeah, beat Seth Rollins, when he was on NXT. I mean, it was a huge deal. So
yeah, man,
you got to give NXT their flowers. I mean, they're really bringing it, and they're not far off, from Dynamite numbers now.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Cool. Well, we're almost at the 5-minute mark, which is contractually as much as Raj Giri can talk about current wrestling on another platform. But we should jump into our main topic today. And we're going to talk a little bit about wrestlers on Netflix at the end of the episode. And Matt, I'm excited to get your take as someone who was in OVW, and a lot of people are loving this show. But the core topic for today is we're going to talk about one of our favorite movies from the 80s, The Karate Kid, and by extension, its sequels, and Cobra Kai. Now, Karate Kid came out, I know last week we were in 1990 or 1985. This week we're going back to 84 with The Karate Kid. Matt, I would love to get your take first because when did you see this in theaters when it first came out? What was your first exposure?
Yeah, I saw all of them in the theaters. huge fan of the series of the series of movies. Had the action figures, everything. Love Daniel LaRusso. What a great babyface, story, right? And those prototypical bullies were so good. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I marked out huge years later when I became a wrestler and I was doing one of these autograph conventions. And was it Billy Zabka?
Yeah.
Was at the table next to me, and this is before Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Now, what people were looking at him like, oh, he's washed up, and isn't that the guy from Karate Kid? Like, making fun of him almost. I was like, are you kidding me? That dude's a legend. He's gonna go down in history as one of the best bullies and bad guys of all time.
Yeah. I mean,
and
Billy
they turned
Zabka,
it around.
Yeah.
With Cobra Kai to where you're kind of like, maybe. When he's explaining his side of things, you're kind of like, oh yeah, you make some solid points. I mean, Daniel did instigate a lot of the ass kicking. God,
I mean, so Billy Zabka, just to fully give him his props. I mean, the holy trinity of '80s bully roles goes from the Karate Kid to just one of the guys to Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, just 3 amazing performances. And in fact, Patton Oswalt, the comedian, wrote something like in the 90s where he had a theory that it was all the same character. That it was like Johnny Lawrence, disgraced, goes to another school, adopts named Greg Tolan, gets his ass kicked by a girl dressed up that looks like Ralph Macchio, and then reinvents himself as Chaz for college. And once again, there's humiliated, which I love that through line because you can almost kind of see it with the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good though, so good.
I would say the 80s had it was the best decade for movie villains. You got between Drago, Iceman,
yes,
Hans Gruber,
yes, yeah. I mean, just iconic villains, and you don't see those iconic villains as much anymore. They're
you know why, right? You know what? Because they flip-flopped. Society has flip-flopped where now, and you just said it yourself, Raj, earlier. They figured a way to somehow babyface the heel and make us feel empathy for the heel and flip everything upside down. Now the underdog, Daniel LaRusso, is the one, with the Cobra Kai series. It's kind of a jerk for starting stuff all the time, apparently, where poor little Billy, Zabka was trying to,
right. What I mean? Even Creed 2, you kind of feel bad for Drago's son. God, they did a fantastic job, but you do feel bad for him. Whereas the original Drago, there's no empathy. The dude was just stone cold Iceman.
Because today's society wants deeper storylines, more layers. There's no such thing as good or bad or white or black. A lot of gray areas in our world, right? Yeah. And today, that's what they try to put out there in movies. Which I'll argue, it's not just wrestling alone, but all storytelling, TV shows, movies. It does make it difficult, in my opinion, when you do that, to find someone that you can actually book or write for as a full-on fledged babyface, where they're not coming across corny and like a dork.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think when that really changed. I think in the 90s we started to see a lot more. The movie The Rock is a great example, where it's like Ed Harris, they give his character such a backstory where it's like, okay, you understand their motivations for why they're doing this, even though they're going about it the wrong way. And ultimately it's going to hurt a lot of innocent people. Like they're trying to shade it more. Then now it's almost kind of novel now when you watch a movie or TV show and the bad guy is like, no, I'm just doing this because I'm evil and I hate everyone. Like that's rare at this point.
Even Thanos had his reasons, like
yes.
Oh man, but so the Karate Kid came out in 1984. Raj, when did you first see this? Were you there like opening weekend or take a bit that summer?
I never saw it in a theater.
Really?
We saw it on video. Yeah.
Wow.
It was an $8 million budget, I think, and it grossed over 90 million, which
130 worldwide. Yeah.
Worldwide. In the US, it was 90.
Yeah.
Just insane when you talk about a return like that. And yeah, I remember watching it for the first time on video, and my parents rented it. We had heard a lot about it, but it was always checked out,
Yeah.
And this was back in the day when we had to wait for the movie to be in stock. and first time I saw it, just hooked. Well, our whole family. I mean, when you talk about like really good 80s movies that are still good today, You know, like you can still show kids and they won't get bored with it. I put Karate Kid and Back to the Future like top 2, 3. You know, easily top 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, man, where I think it's held up really well. And I mean, to be fair, the source material was Rocky with this. I mean, you had John G. Avildsen, who directed Rocky, that was booked to direct the Karate Kid, and you could see a through line with the movies. Although with the Karate Kid, I think the ending is more satisfying, whereas Rocky was a little bit more of a character piece. I feel like this was, and I mean this in the best way possible, it's like they were trying to make Rocky for kids and young adults, and where they could really understand it. And you have some of the same themes, right? I mean, Rocky was about going the distance. It was about, doesn't matter if you win or lose, like I'm showing up and proving that I deserve to be there. And in this case, I mean, you had that with Daniel as well. It just so happened that he won in like one of the most epic, triumphant moments of victory in an 80s film. You know?
Yeah.
But isn't every sports movie like that? Like, you know, I always would hear the comparisons Karate Kid to Rocky, but that's kind of every sports movie where you got the underdog. They're usually not this dominant team that goes on to win at the end, right?
I wonder what the first one that had that was, because the Bad News Bears had that, and they didn't win at the end. Yeah, which is great. They just got drunk with their coach and like cursed out the opposing winning team. But I think that was I mean, when you watch and read think pieces about the 70s and what the 70s meant for film as far as reflecting society, I think 70s movies were not about, I mean, remember, America was just coming off the Vietnam War, was coming off Watergate. Like, these were not stories where it's always, oh, the good guy works hard and wins and we all feel good about it. It was like, no, sometimes we give it our all and we still come up short. It's like, it's kind of depressing when you watch a lot of 70s movies, to be honest, from a modern lens. Like when I see something, even like I watched the original Longest Yard for the first time recently, and I was just kind of like, you know, this is, I get why people like this, but it's also kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, a lot of movies back then. Deer Hunter, like so many, you know, like Raging Bull was not a feel-good movie. So yeah, Karate Kid kind of changed that trajectory.
Yeah,
you have the underdog win at the end. And,
that's the most important. That's the most important part, Raj. What you're about to say about the underdog getting the win at the end, and for little kids and parents, why wouldn't a parent take their, you know, young daughter or son to go watch that? You know,
and it's funny that it came out at the end of June in '84. I just imagine. Well, it's interesting because you think about kids, like we're out of school. It's summertime. It's a feel-good movie. But I'm imagining, so we're going to talk a little later about our own experience with getting in fights and like bullying and things we went through as a kid. Like up at that point, I was 7 or 8 years old. I felt on top of the world as a child, probably up until maybe around like age 10. But when I think about it now from that perspective, I can imagine me if I'd seen that a few years later over the summer, where it was like, okay, no one's going to fuck with me this fall. like I'm gonna find a maintenance man and he's gonna teach me some things, and you know, I'm gonna be untouchable. Like, I mean,
we've all tried the crane kick, right?
Like,
you know, practiced it, not actually using it on someone, but you know, thinking like, hey, you know, I could, if shit goes down, I got this move from this movie.
But I think about when I first saw it. So I saw it in theaters. It was either opening weekend or the second weekend. Like we went to the movies a lot. And, you know, I don't think we touched on this last week. So Matt, as a kid, so Raj, it sounds like your family was a rental family. Did they just do the math and they were like, it's a better value to get the tape and watch it at home?
Yeah. I mean, we moved around a lot when I was younger, and so that would end up being, I mean, I didn't see that many movies until the mid '80s in the theater. Yeah.
Matt, what about you? Did you go every week, or what was your approach to going to the film?
Yeah, it felt like it back then as kids, when we were younger in the 80s. But also, like, I'd get rewarded. If my mom did get any calls from my special needs teacher at the time that I wasn't paying attention or something like that, then I'd be able to go get a movie, or I'd be able to get a I'll never forget this Michael Jackson Thriller album when that first came out. Little things like that, but mainly movies.
Yeah, and it sounds like, I mean, it was powerful. I mean, you were a big movie fan, so that was probably a powerful thing to keep your behavior, on the right path. For me, it's funny. Like, we got in the habit of going to the movies as a family, maybe once a week when we lived in Michigan. Then we moved to California, and it was we were a lot closer to the theater, so we'd go more often. But then there was a time period probably from like 83 to 86, where my father would be on weeknights. He's like, hey, do you want to go see this? And I probably saw like 4 movies a week. I kid you not. On the weekend, we go with my brothers and my mom, but my dad and I would go out 1 or 2 nights a week. And I was kind of pissed. My dad took away like a pleasant childhood memory because, we had a falling out after the divorce and everything. But I remember that I was like, yeah, I used to really like how close we were when I was a kid, and you take me to movies all the time. And he was like, oh yeah, the marriage was falling apart and I just need to get the hell out of the house and away from your mom. And I figured if you wanted to come along too, she wouldn't give me a hard time about it. And I was like, thanks, Dad. Like,
oh, God.
Just ruined like my favorite part of our relationship. But we would go, and we talked about it last week. He would do the thing, like I would go see something like Running Scared or like an R-rated like buddy cop movie or a thriller with him, and he like put his hand over my eyes during nudity. Never during violence, which was strange. But we went all the time. And then when I moved to Michigan, because the movie theater was far away from us, I literally in like 86, 87, 88, some Saturdays, I would just have my mom drop me off at the theater at noon. And then the mall was across from there. So I would go to 4 or 5 movies. During a break, I would go over to the mall, play video games, get Taco Bell, and then like walk back to the movie theater. And I didn't sneak in. I paid for like every film. I even figured out if you bought the gift certificate book, you came out ahead because I had like a free popcorn in there. So I saw in theaters the majority of movies that were released probably between 1983 and 1990. And Karate Kid, though, that was one where it was like, yeah, I think I saw that like 4 or 5 times that summer because it was just such a feel-good story, so many iconic moments. And I think that I think it's so beautifully cast, beautifully written. And you know what's cool? You guys have probably never seen this. I know our audience has probably never seen this. If you look on YouTube, John Alvinson, before he shot this, because he was working with a young cast, he shot all the rehearsals on a camcorder. Yeah. And on YouTube, there is a version of the Karate Kid that's about 20 minutes longer that's all shot on like a VHS camcorder of the rehearsals of the entire film.
And you can see it right now?
You can see it. Yeah. Search on YouTube. Karate Kid rehearsals.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the names that were up for Daniel LaRusso, like that wasn't even the original name. His name was going to be Daniel Weber, and they changed it once they got Ralph Macchio. But he had Robert Downey Jr., who was one of the names considered, and I think he auditioned for it.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Totally different movie.
Well, I mean, you think about it when we talk about Back to the Future, what happened there. I mean, and some of the Back to the Future editions online. But yeah, you know, if you think about if Eric Stoltz had gone through with Back to the Future and that had been released, that would have been a much different movie. However, I argue, you know who their third choice was, Matt, for Back to the Future was C. Thomas Howell.
It wouldn't have worked, obviously, but he was over back then.
Yeah, it would have been a basic cable classic. Back to the Future, but it wouldn't have done what it went on to do.
No way.
You know, you wouldn't have.
Michael J. Fox was just perfect for that. And then Karate Kid, I thought Ralph Macchio, because the one thing with Ralph Macchio and Karate Kid is he's also kind of annoying in a lot of ways, right? Like he whines a lot. Like with Miyagi, he complains, but you still find him endearing. You know, you still root for him. And, you know, he instigates the fight, the Halloween fight when he puts the hose on the guys, but you're still rooting for him, even though he started it and with the radio. But he has that personality where you just end up rooting for him.
Hey, what was he doing in that stall before he got soaked? Was he rolling a joint? What was that?
Yeah, it was the marijuana.
I was too young to understand that as a kid.
Same here. I always thought it was a cigarette.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Yeah.
But we have to give a shout out to Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi, which, if you think about this, like 3 years before, he was playing Arnold on Happy Days. Mm-hmm. Like he was a comedian. He was this comic relief character that did a lot of TV. I've been rewatching The Love Boat. He shows up on The Love Boat a lot. Mm-hmm. Like he got that role, nominated for an Oscar in that role. But think about that jump. Bill Simmons made the comparison. It would have been like if Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell got nominated for an Oscar in 1998. That's what it would have been like. You know, with Pat Morita going. I mean, I guess the only thing that's probably similar is like Greg Kinnear that went from hosting Talk Soup to then, being in the Jack Nicholson movie and getting nominated. So Pat Morita, though, amazing turn. And whenever I watch it, I mean, he's just so good, you know, doing the Yoda type role. But man, the older I get and the more I realize the context of history, the scene when he talks about the internment camp and his wife and losing his child is just like, holy shit. And the studio wanted to cut that scene. Like, that's the scene that got him the Oscar nomination because it's so powerful and so heavy. And the more you watch it now, like, the heavier it is. As a kid, I didn't really get it, but it's just now it's like, holy shit.
And to be fair, every other part he had in that movie was very basic, though. It was very short. Which had to have been hard for him to want to pull off because he's a full-fledged actor. That's, a great very, very good, was a very good actor on top of it. So that shows restraint and the body language and everything he did was perfect with that character.
Well, the studio didn't even want him.
Yeah.
Like, they were fighting against him, even being in the movie, because
who are they going to have there instead?
One of the guys they were considering was the guy that was his stunt double. That was actually doing the crane kick.
Was it just some jabron, some no name?
Well, no, there were a couple.
No. You go ahead, Glenn.
I was gonna say most people wouldn't know the names of the actors, but I swear if I showed you the photos of this of some of the people that almost got cast in this, like you would recognize it. In terms of Toshiro Mifumi is Mr. Miyagi. He was a Japanese film legend. I believe the older gentleman who played the shop owner in Gremlins, I think, was one of the runners up. Like, it was basically a who's who of Asian actors at the time that were up for this role. And I think that, in fairness to the studio, it was a little more traditional, like martial arts style actor is what they were thinking of for the role originally, where Pat Morita, doesn't exude that, which is part of why I think the character is so brilliant, because he seems like this humble maintenance man. And then you find out that he has like this huge wealth of fighting skills.
Hey, let me ask you this, because people are probably more excited about this. Who else was up for to be casted for Johnny? Was it always just him?
I think it was always him, was always the story that I heard.
Yeah, okay. I think it was just him.
And the other Cobra Kai's. I think what they did, and this, by the way, happened with Back to the Future. Biff's gang, like everyone in Biff's gang is someone who auditioned for Biff. And they were they were like, we don't want you as Biff, but like, we're going to give you this role. So with the Cobra Kai's, it was the same thing. Like
with Back to the Future, with Biff's gang, who was the guy that ended up being the lead bad guy in Titanic? What was
Billy Zane?
Billy Zane.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he had a full line in that movie. And like, to see like, where he kind of ended up, he did really well for himself. But
and Karate Kid has a lot of that too. You see a lot of people in the film that it's so 80s, right? And the Cobra Kai's, Chad McQueen, Tony O'Dell, Ron Thomas, and then Martin Cove, who we haven't even talked about as Kreese. Like, talk about villains. And it's crazy that now we're going to talk about Karate Kid 3, but it's weird that like Karate Kid 3 and then later what we saw in Cobra Kai tried to humanize him and give him more of a backstory.
Yeah.
But you go back to the original movie and it was just like, no, this guy's this tough militant asshole,
And
all of
was
them
great at it.
all of them, every villain or heel they booked in those movies were so over the top. And just that prototypical jerky bully that you just want to see popped in the face. But what was cool about that was they started to establish that it wasn't just Johnny. So like if Daniel LaRusso somehow gets lucky and beats up Johnny one day, you still had to deal with his sensei. You still had to deal then obviously with other characters they introduced that was bigger than his sensei. They did a good job with that.
So this is how big of a Karate Kid fan I was. Like, I bought the book when the movie came out, and in the book they do the opening scene in part 2. Like, that's the ending of the book where where Kreese is smashing the trying to punch Miyagi, and he goes through the windows, and that was actually in the book years before part 2 came out, and then I guess it was originally in the script and they cut it out and ended up putting it in.
Yeah, they didn't shoot it. But no, it's a great scene. And okay, so you mentioned something, Raj, like this is a great tangent here. Did you guys ever try and pull the trick for the book report of like picking the novelization of a movie or a book that got turned into a movie and you're like, I'm going to do my book report on this because then I don't have to read the book?
Yes.
I don't think I was smart enough to do that, to be honest with you. I know
Princess Bride.
I lived for that, Matt. I would be like, oh, there's a novelization of this. And I would be more interested in reading the book. Like Raj said, there was a novelization of a movie because I'm like, maybe there's some extra stuff in here. You know, like I remember reading like the novelization to Space Camp. And I'm like, ooh, I want to dive deeper into the Space Camp universe. And then I would get away with it sometimes, like with Stand By Me, because the Stephen King novella was called The Body. I like did my book report on The Body. And people in the audience were like, this sounds a lot like the movie Stand By Me. And I was like, shh, don't tell the teacher. She doesn't know.
Stand By Me is a great one.
It is. We'll talk about that. I'll like it'll be like therapy. I'll be crying on the podcast. So this, according to Wikipedia, so take this with a grain of salt. But Matt, this is saying that Crispin Glover, George McFly himself, was considered for the role of Johnny.
What?
No,
that never would have worked. God, that would not have worked.
No.
Somebody
There's
needs
no
to
way.
deep fake that. Like, come on, like let's put this technology to good use and let's have him going up to Daniel and Allie and saying, "Hey, you, take your damn hands off her."
Hey, you. Yeah.
No way. And what a resurgence by Zabka, right? With Cobra Kai. Like he became the babyface on that show. You talk about the way they were able to flip the whole thing for Cobra Kai has just been amazing. And so Cobra Kai is like pro wrestling where you have heel turns and babyface turns. And
well, let me ask you that, Raj. I'm gonna cut you off, but let me ask you, do you think they could have done the same? Let's pretend today's TV watchers are just as mature as what they are today, but back in, let's say, 95. Okay? 1995. I don't think they could have pulled this off.
No.
Because not enough time would have gone by for us originals that watched the movie to be like, wait a minute. No, I was trained to hate this guy. I'm not going to like him now. I don't care what they tell me. But now it's been so long, and we're now more mature ourselves, and we grew up with those characters, by the way. You know, they're a little bit older than us, but still, we grew up with them. So now we can say, like, now we've lived our lives, we're in our 40s, etc. We can be like, oh, he's just grown into this. And wow, I didn't know that about his childhood. I didn't know that happened to him either. And before you know it, you start feeling bad for him, have sympathy and empathy. And today's society wants that out of their characters. They want those multi-layers of the onion to peel back and watch these movies or even TV shows for that matter. I do not think this would have worked in the 90s. No way.
No, I feel like The Sopranos for me is kind of what started it, where you had
and then eventually Dexter, True Blood, some of these others. Yes, we are rooting for
The Wire.
Any other setting would be villains, right? In any other setting, these people would be villains. But
well, to that point, you know, I don't think Cobra Kai would have happened. It became kind of a meme, right? It became one of the early internet memes about like Johnny actually wasn't doing anything wrong. And then the TV show How I Met Your Mother, as David Mack just brought up in the chat, like they had William Zabka guest star on an episode where Neil Patrick Harris, it was his birthday. And I mean, it's a whole thing. The joke of the episode is that his girlfriend gets him everything that he hates for his birthday. So he gets him a clown, which he hates, and he gets him Ralph Macchio, you know, and she's like, oh, what, you love the Karate Kid? And she's like, I hate the Karate Kid. And let me tell you why. Like, you know, this guy does an illegal move in the final, tries to steal this guy's girl, like goes on this whole thing. And the end reveal is that the clown she got him is actually William Zabka. Like, that's the real surprise for his birthday. And then William Zabka recurred on the show in like one of the last seasons in a recurring role. So I think that's
they had Macchio on there too, right?
They did. Yeah. He was in the birthday episode. So that's sort of, I think, popularized the meme. And I think that without that, we probably wouldn't have had people knowing that William Zabka is still around, looks good, and is in the game. Now, he went on to work behind the scenes. He did a lot of martial arts movies and direct-to-video stuff in the late 80s and 90s, but then he went on to direct. I think for him coming back to this, like, he hasn't really acted pre-Cobra Kai in quite some time. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Like I told you, this was the 2000 and I want to say 2010. I'm being serious. People were like, who's this guy? I never heard of him like that at the autograph convention. Yeah. I was like, you idiots. I know.
Well, no one from Karate Kid really acted out except for Elizabeth Shue. She became
Ralph Macchio was in My Cousin Vinny and Crossroads, where he played. He had a blues battle against the devil.
Right, but
Well,
that
to be
was
fair-
you saw the decline happening.
Yeah.
You know, by the
But
time My Cousin
before-
Vinny, it was a bit part.
Sorry,
But
what was that?
before Karate Kid, he was in. Come on, what was the Grease
The
movie
Outsiders.
called? Yes, Outsiders.
Yeah.
That was a star-studded movie. Good lord.
Tom
But
Cruise.
he was always typecasted. Ralph Macchio looks
Yeah.
a certain way. You're never gonna get out of that, dude. You're Daniel LaRusso. Like that's very difficult to get out of that. So I'm happy they got to do this and make some money off of this years later.
And he's like 60. He's 60 something now because he was 22 when Karate Kid.
He's
Was
old. Well, he's like
whoa. He was 22.
Yeah, he was 22.
Actually, like 24 when it came out. So yeah,
Right,
like
Were all the others that age, guys?
no. He's the oldest. But now you know what's funny, Matt. So how's this for
Weird.
feeling old? He is for a couple of years now has been older than Pat Morita was in the first movie.
Right.
Because Pat Morita wasn't that old.
But you don't think that's weird? Like if you're one of these other kids on the movie set, you're like, yeah, this kid's playing a kid your age. Oh, by the way, he's like 24. Like,
well, you know, in part 3, he was almost 30, right? And then the girl they cast in part 3 was like 16.
Yeah,
and
Robin Lively.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, they didn't, I guess, research it or whatever.
Well, they also softened it. They tried to make it. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they took out the romantic angle because of the age difference. But the original idea in Karate Kid Part 3 was for her to be the love interest, but she just turned into a friend. But yeah, she was like 16.
Gotcha.
And he was 30. So yeah.
And yeah, Elizabeth Shue in the original. I mean, that was the first thing I saw original Elizabeth Shue in. And it's like between that and Adventures in Babysitting, like one of my biggest crushes of the 80s.
Jesus. And you look at her now, she's been on The Boys, she you know, in Cobra Kai, she just looks amazing. Almost even better than she did back then. I mean, she's just she was always better with age.
And back then, the girls they used to try to introduce us to in movies were like saying words like totally tubular and like overly done with makeup and glasses, and they were really overdone. She was one of those like naturally beautiful women that maybe, you know, if you grew up one day, that girl next door type.
Oh yeah.
Everyone fell in love with her.
I remember Cocktail with Tom Cruise and Elizabeth Shue was on cable the other night. And I remember when that was on video as a kid, like you see like side boob, and I remember like pausing it, and I was just like, of course, poke my head around as if I could see more. But that was I feel like I became a man during that moment. Huge crush on
Las Vegas.
You know, that still bums me out. She's very good in that, but I will never watch that movie again.
It's a very depressing movie.
It's very depressing. But she showed she has range. So I mean, so from the first one, I mean, that was just a monster hit that was everywhere. And in fact, I mean, it's so funny that in Just One of the Guys, they made a reference to that when Joyce Heiser is Terry, like looking like the Karate Kid. But the Karate Kid 2 came out 2 years later, summer of '86.
It was a bigger hit.
Yeah, they go to Okinawa. Like it was huge.
Gloria Love.
Yes,
that was the song of the year.
I liked that second one a lot. I loved it.
Yeah, me too. I thought Chosen was a great villain, but I thought the soundtrack, the background music, the dun 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 dun, like everything was just so. It was so deep. It was really good. Like I loved it.
It was
like
huge.
at the time, I thought I liked part 2 better, and then years later, I was like, nah, part 1 is still better. But yeah, part 2 was great.
But originally, I'd like the second one better when it first came out. I did
really
think it was better. I did because I thought that villain was built up better. Yeah. I did. I thought he was built up better.
Because like when Daniel does the crane, and he swats it away. It was like, oh shit!
Yes,
that's what you're like. Oh no,
dude, misdirection, false finish.
The drum thing was weird in the second one because you never actually see him punching him. You just see sleeves flying at the end, you know, and it's just like going back and forth. But I love part 2. I think Gloria Love is one of the best movie songs ever.
And it was a much bigger, like the whole storyline was much bigger, Glenn, because he was saving like that whole town, that whole area, the whole village rather. Much bigger.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I was bummed Elizabeth Shue wasn't back. I remember reading the novelization. They explain more about like why she left him. But yeah, like part 2 though. I mean, that was '86 though, was a stacked summer for movies. Karate Kid 2 is the one I've seen the least. And I think it's just because when it came out, like there was so much else going on that summer.
You've seen 3 more than 2.
I've seen 3 probably almost as much as I've seen the original.
More than next Karate Kid, or
I've seen Next
no?
Karate Kid once. We'll talk about that in a second. But Karate Kid 3. So Karate Kid 1, huge hit. Karate Kid 2, huge hit. Karate Kid 3, I saw opening day. I was the only person in the theater.
I saw it opening weekend. Hated it.
It's bad, but it's also great.
So you have the babyface who gets his ass kicked the whole movie, and then in the final fight, he's getting just the crap kicked out of him, and then he ends up winning by just a lucky move, basically. Yeah. Yes. So, and he never hurt the guy. Like, ultimately, the villain never even gets hurt. It was just this one lucky punch at the end that he wins the tournament by. He didn't even have to go in the tournament. They changed the rules so he could just go into the finals. I mean, they if it was pro wrestling, you'd be like, who booked this crap, right? Like, you make the villain look like the total badass, and the baby face like the chicken shit heel.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad point. I did like 3 though, for what it was worth. Not as much as 2 and 1, but I did like it.
And he doesn't get the girl.
Terry Silver, one of the greatest '80s villains with his ponytail, dumping nuclear waste.
Decides to skip he decides to skip his nuclear waste dumping business to torture this kid. I like that they brought that up in Cobra Kai.
It was amazing in Cobra Kai, where then he's like, I was on a lot of cocaine at the time. But you watch that movie, I mean, and Kreese, the thing with Kreese faking his death, and with Kreese, I was like, this is kind of dark. And Karate Kid 3, I guess it was 13 when that came out, but I remember saying, I was like, it's kind of a dark movie. Like, this is kind of a bummer. Like, they're going to strand him on the side of the cliff with the bonsai, like, higher stakes,
I just think at the end, you want the babyface to legitimately win and not win on a technicality. And part 3 didn't have that at the end. You had Daniel lucking into a point because the heel, what was his name?
Mike Barnes.
Yeah, Barnes.
Bad boy of karate.
Bad boy.
Kept getting the points, right? And then purposely getting it taken away. So, yeah, he just beat the crap out of him the whole final fight until the last punch.
Well, all right, what about the next one, Glenn?
Okay, the next Karate Kid was with Hilary Swank. I've seen it once. It's an okay movie.
Really?
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's the kind of thing that you would have watched on cable, like 4 PM, and would have been like, this is solid.
Yeah,
it was like a TV movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would watch the whole thing. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? You're right. Yeah.
I mean, the villain's kind of one-dimensional. Oh, it's a boys' academy, and she's a girl, so she's got to prove something extra. And I get why that makes it a more compelling story. But the fact that it didn't have Daniel and you have Mr. Miyagi removed from everything, and she was friends. So, I mean, the good news is that Hilary Swank is like the last card they have to play for Cobra Kai. That's like the last return from the Karate Kid universe.
Unless you delve into the next universe and bring Will Smith.
I mean, which was fine. The one with Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith. That was fine.
Isn't Cobra Kai going to be done? It said no more after?
One more season.
They're going to have season 7?
Yeah, season 6. I believe.
6, I mean?
Yeah, it's going to be the last one. Now, the strike, like everything else, has derailed it. Like, they're ready to go. But,
Miguel's in a superhero movie.
Blue Beetle. Still haven't seen it, but it got great reviews. Looking forward to watching it when it hits HBO Max.
Yeah. I mean,
the kids are good. It's a good show. The girl that plays Tori is on School Spirits on Paramount Plus. Like, I feel like, a lot of people from that series are breaking in. I mean, it's interesting. The last series that tried to do what Cobra Kai did was actually Degrassi: The Next Generation, where they took some of the original Degrassi kids as like the principal and then had a new group of students and people's kids. And Cobra Kai feels very similar, but I think that it's kind of tough though. With Degrassi, I liked watching more of the stuff about the new class. The adult stuff got kind of lame. But honestly, I would be happy if Cobra Kai was still like season 1. It was about Johnny just trying to rebuild his life and figure out where he fits in the modern world. Like, I think that's still the best part of the series. I like the whole show, but I think Johnny is a very compelling character.
Yeah, that's the main draw. Like, I've always thought that he was the main draw to it. But really quick, did you have to watch Degrassi junior high when you were in junior high school for health class?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, it's like, watch this now, and then like occasionally be like, now write a paper, like talk about what Wheels did in the episode.
Yeah.
And explain what you would have done in Wheels' situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Spike got pregnant. Raj didn't watch Degrassi, Matt. He went to a better school.
I did not.
Like, you don't understand. It's this hokey Canadian show, like pre 90210, but it looks like it was shot on a home video camera, and it's like teen pregnancy and drugs. Like, if you went to that school, you're cursed. Everything bad happens to everyone that goes to that school.
Literally every character.
Yeah, it's very 80s and very Canadian.
And to be completely all over the place, I'm gonna not remember to ask you this. Raj, tell me you went to Colorado's football game last night.
No. So I was on a golf trip. So, but I did watch it. Yeah,
amazing.
I had a little money on it, but yeah, that was an amazing game.
I like the way this trajectory is going. Is in 5 years, Raj is going to be like taking shifts at Starbucks because these bets didn't work out that he's placing.
Outside of Jade Cargill, I'm doing pretty well. And we'll see about Jade. I'm still not 100% convinced.
Okay.
But yeah, what Cobra Kai was able to do, like the way they were able to bring it into this next generation, Creed was able to do that, and Top Gun, Maverick. It's pretty amazing how they've been able to turn this whole new generation into fans from the original, using the original as the source.
So let me ask you this. Don't you think that's because it's a complete new generation watching, therefore it's a fresh movie to them? We're watching Top Gun going, I want to see a couple of Easter eggs in there reminding me of the original one, just so we can feel good about ourselves. But the main demographics that are watching those movies, this is something brand new to them. Don't you think that's the reason for it, though? Like,
well, it's the template. It's the template. I mean, Scream 5 called it out, the requel idea, where it's a reboot and a sequel, where we bring back the legacy characters to get the old people to watch it. Then we've got the younger people, so current kids don't think, hey, this is an old person movie like The Big Chill or something. And that way you get both to come in, and hopefully, the kids fall in love with the legacy of the series, and the older people, there's enough fan service for them, but then you got to go, I like some of these new characters too. Like it's a formula now. And it's like studios are trying to copy this left and right to use old intellectual property and make it new again to squeeze some more money out of it. And you know what? I'm a sucker for it, man. I would go watch anything if you're like, well, it's a continuation of this. There's some new stuff, but you also see some old favorites. Like I thought the last Ghostbusters Afterlife did a very good job with that. I mean, well, they didn't have it, but the fact that the next one's going to have Ernie Hudson more in it, though, I think is going to be a stronger continuation. But I think, Matt, to your point, Top Gun Maverick, like biggest movie post-pandemic. I think that's the formula we're going to see more of. And I think we're going to see it. There's already talks about the next like Nightmare on Elm Street doing something similar.
Cool. That'll be cool.
Yeah. Because you've got all these, but here's the craziest thing, Matt, to your point about where Billy Zabka's career was at. You've got these actors now that have been surviving by going and doing these conventions and getting money for autographs and photos. And now the studios are coming back like, hey, what do we have to pay you to get you back in the series? Yeah,
hopefully they keep in good shape, because there is something to be said about, everyone says the same thing when they see these characters again, like what, Daniel LaRusso, wow, he looks good. He looks pretty good for being 60. Or did you, for whatever reason, I just notice it's important to people when they watch it. I don't know. God bless them, because we're talking 40 years ago. Isn't that how long ago?
Yeah.
30.
And Macho is actually older than Terry Silver, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Terry Silver is like a year younger than Ralph Macchio. He was 29, and he's talking about how he's in Nam.
Nobody thought this was weird.
He was the best audition.
Adult playing a kid.
And he's the only real martial artist. Like, he's the most skilled martial artist of part 3 and part 1. Terry Silver.
Oh yeah. Daniel LaRusso being a full-grown man.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. But I think that just to see how it's evolved and see what the response to it has been. I feel bad. Like 13 years ago, there was a direct-to-video Lost Boys sequel. And
I didn't even hear about that.
There actually were two. One's got Kiefer Sutherland's brother, but it's got Corey Feldman in it, like as one of the Frog Brothers. The Frog Brothers, he's still hunting vampires. And then like Corey Haim showed up from a cameo, and I felt, we know what happened to him and what a rough time he had. But yeah, Corey Haim shows up for a scene, and it was like he couldn't even make it through it. Like he was not doing well. So it's kind of a bummer sometimes when you look at it and you're like, oh, this isn't going. I mean, look even with Val Kilmer and everything he's been through, how they had to like use AI to recreate his voice for those scenes in Top Gun Maverick because he's lost his ability to speak. So it's interesting to see how they overcome that challenge from time to time.
Yeah.
But the principal cast from those Karate Kid movies, Barnes, Zapka, Machio, they all still look really good, you know.
Yeah, they do.
For how old they are now, you know. Terry Silver,
definitely.
Martin Cove. It was
Martin Cove looks amazing, and that guy's got to be like pushing 80 at this point.
Yeah.
So what I want to talk about, because we teased this a little bit. So Karate Kid, unlike Rocky, these were people roughly our age, and this was a story where the underdog triumphs. Matt, what's your first memory of getting in a fight? Was it in grade school? Was it in junior high? Like, how did that happen and how did it go?
So multiple ways. So we had this thing called The Path.
Okay.
Like back when I was in 1st through 5th grade at a place called Jennings Elementary School, where I went to, Connecticut. And we had this thing like a block away called The Path, where everyone ride their bikes through there, all this other stuff. But it was like off out of the way where adults never were. They were never there. And that's where all of our school fights would take place. So it was literally out of that movie was a 3 o'clock high.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'll see you at 3 o'clock. Like that, I swear to you, was what would happen at our school. But what was worse, I had it with kids that were above our property at the elementary school was for Woods middle school now, 6th to 8th graders. Well, for whatever rhyme or reason, I must have pissed this kid off playing basketball at my Boys and Girls Club, something, to where he came down to our elementary school and went to our window. I'm not joking. Our window, like where our classroom was, where you could see outside on the playground, and you can see this kid, I'm not joking you, doing this. I swear to God. And like the kid, my friend Josh next to me, he's like, no. And it's so freaking funny. But now it's funny. I was terrified. And just like that movie 3 o'clock high, I'm not joking. Like my heart was beating out of my chest, Glenn, because it was gonna be my first fight ever. Other than my fights with my older brother, obviously, but that's not the same thing. Where the whole school comes and watches you.
Wow.
With all this pressure on you, there's 200 kids sitting there, hooting, hollering, booing, cheering, whatever they're there to do. Thank God there wasn't camera phones anymore at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
World star.
But that was my first fight. I got it bad. This kid again was older than me. But I started lifting weights and doing push-ups, minor weights, and push-ups in 5th grade. My older brother started to help me with that stuff. And, from there, I was able to start handling my own as I got older and less scared, because once you get punched in the face for that first time, it's over with. And then you're not so scared anymore. Every kid, I don't care who you are, what you grew up in, you don't know what that first punch is going to feel like, and you're scared of it for good reason. But once it's happened and you get through it, then it's not that big of a deal anymore.
No, it's true. Raj, how about you?
So I hate to be the bummer on this conversation. I've never been in a fight.
What?
What? You have any bullies in your school that you bumped into incorrectly or looked at their girl incorrectly or something?
Never. But it never came down to physicality. Yeah. So, yeah, never been punched in the face.
Let me throw one more.
Yeah, I always when I watch Fight Club, it's like, yeah, it would be interesting to be, punched in the face.
Good for you. So Glenn, we'll get to it before I want to forget this. So this one just popped in my head.
Okay, yeah.
I had this girl in my woodshop class now in high school. Yeah, I'm in 9th grade. And I'm on my bus to go home that day after school. And I'm sitting there minding my own business. Some kid comes on this bus. He's a senior. Full-grown mustache. I'm not BSing. I don't want to say the kid's name, but I still remember like yesterday. I ran into him years later. Anyways, he comes over to me. He's like, "Hey, you been looking at my girl?" I'm like, "I don't know who your girl is." And he's got my shirt like this, and I'm sitting on the school bus seat. Keep in mind, I'm like, I have no idea who your girlfriend is. And this girl Jen stands up. She's like, "It's me," and I'm going. I don't look at her. I've known her since we were in grade school together. Why are you lying to him?
Yeah.
You call my girl a liar? Wham! smacks me, not punches me, smacks me in the face. And I just had to sit there and take it because at this time we had a gang in our high school, and this punk was in that gang. The Bum Rush Committee, they were called, by the way, the BRC. I'm not joking. That was their name. And I was frozen because I'm like, I've got to do something. Everyone in the school bus is watching me. I've got to do something, but I didn't. And I couldn't because I had all these other kids on the bus. I'm like, where the hell's the damn bus driver during all this? Why is she just letting this happen?
Yeah.
8 of them were not on that bus. They're not supposed to be on that bus with me. Do you see what I'm saying? They came on there, found me, and this girl made that up. I don't know why she did still to this day, but she did.
Wow. That's crazy, man. Well, and you would go on to be in other conflicts. You would get paid to fight. Literally. We'll talk about that on a future episode. Raj, you've never been punched in the face?
Never. Yeah.
Wow.
That means it's still in there. That fear is still in there.
Yeah, you got to get over it, man.
Yeah, you haven't cherry on it.
Hey, man. Well, let's try some MMA soon.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, because I'm trying to think. So it wasn't. So I fought with my brothers growing up, but that was all like just dumb, sort of hitting each other, and it was never with the intent. Like I don't think we hit each other in the face. It would always be like punching in the arm, punching in the leg. You know, like
my sister would scratch a lot.
Okay.
And, yeah.
You really want to hang that out there? Give us a fake story right now, Rod, please. Because they're going to run wild with. There was this one time I got scratched by my sister.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Well, and I'll tell you this. So I learned how to shut it down with my brothers. Like if it got bad, because my middle brother's younger than me, like he was more athletic. So I just like bit him once and then he stopped. Like that shut it all down. Then it was like, okay, if I goes too far, Glenn's gonna bite me. Like we're not gonna like that. After that, we had a truce on everything. But no, my first time getting in a fight, I was probably 10, and it was over a girl. I really liked this girl. I guess kind of liked me, but who knows? Back then, she's like the first. I guess she was the first girl I ever really kissed, like in a romantic way.
At 10? You kissed a girl when you were 10 years old?
Yeah.
That's like 3rd grade, right?
I actually kissed a girl a year or two younger. My dad, after the divorce, I guess it would have been 11 when I got my first kiss. But when I was like 9 or 10 after the divorce, my dad would take us on dates with women who had kids. And I remember one time, the one he was dating had a daughter, and it was literally like, she was my age. It was like, we're bored. What do you want to do? And then she kissed me, and it was just like a boredom thing. And I remember I was like, okay, maybe this isn't so bad with my dad being divorced. But so when I lived in Michigan, 5th grade, like this girl, maybe it was 5th, maybe it was 6th, but she was like my first romantic kiss. And I remember she had an ex-boyfriend, and everyone was like, oh, he's not going to be happy about this. You know, like he's going to be out to get you. And I think people might have been fucking with me. I think he actually really didn't care. But the problem is, because I'd seen Karate Kid and I'd seen these movies, part of me was kind of like, oh, this guy's got it out for me. And he had a group of friends and I had like a group of friends. So I remember like playing like little tricks on his friends. Or this kid, because I was like, oh, he's got it out for me. I better strike first. So like one of them in Michigan, it would snow all the time. So I remember like one of them had a backpack. I remember like filling this kid's backpack with snow. Because pretty good. I mean, it was, and I even took out his stuff. I wasn't a dick about it. I didn't put snow on his stuff. I took out his stuff and filled his backpack with snow. But I remember, so like his friends then would start getting in my face about stuff. And I remember in the movie Class from the early 90s, I'd just seen that on cable. And there's this movie scene where a woman at a bar plays a trick on Andrew Ridgely, or not Andrew McCarthy. And she's like, oh, I bet you can't roll this quarter down your face without stopping from your forehead to your chin. And what he doesn't know is that if you take a pencil on the edge of the quarter, so when he did it, he drew a line on his face. Yeah. Like I did that to one of this kid's friends on the schoolyard. So then he wanted to kick my ass when he found out, because he had this big line going down his face.
I remember that trick, by the way. Yep.
Yeah. So I think now that my realization is I kind of bullied a kid into becoming a bully.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Not expecting this twist.
Yeah, like I think that I did these little things because I thought this guy had it out for me. I did these little things to antagonize him and his friends to the point where my friends and his friends, we got in a full-blown fight. Now, the first time it was just me, I got my ass kicked. Absolutely deserved it, had it coming. You know, not like maliciously I had to go to the hospital, but it was like, oh, took a punch. You know, he was like, dude, like, you know, like just stay the fuck away from me. I was like, okay, cool. But yeah, I remember when his friends started going after my friends, we had like one full-blown fight in the snow, and it was probably totally lame, but like they were the ones that ran off first, so we felt like we won, and that was a big crowning moment of triumph for me in like 6th grade.
Wow.
And then I would get in fights with. Well, I'm sorry.
What do you think of Romeo Rubenstein over here, Rod?
I know.
In 5th grade.
It's like Grease.
Hated girls still in 5th grade.
Wow.
I thought they were icky.
But what's funny though, and I think about it now, and maybe it was a weird puberty testosterone thing, because I was thinking like I did get in fights with people that I considered my friends. Like every argument would then just turn into like throwing hands. And I remember it would be the thing, like when you fight with a friend, the way the fight ends is when it's like, stay down, just stop, we're done. And then they'll decide, like then they're like, okay, fine. And then they clock you in the face.
Or their parents or
their parents come.
Yeah, like, Matt, did you and Josh tell your differences? Yeah, he had a Tennessee accent.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. But
yeah. But no, like there was a lot of that. And then by the time I got to junior high, then when I moved back to California, I mean, I was bullied. There was like one kid, and the weirdest thing about this, like it never became a fight thing, but he would just like give me shit about my weight, because at that point I'd started to put on some weight and I wasn't athletic anymore so much.
What grade?
I was at 7th or 8th.
Okay.
But here's the weirdest thing, dude. I see this guy because like we ended up having a lot of friends as adults. And I see this guy when I lived in Northern California. I saw this guy in the regular, like at gatherings of friends. I would see him at funerals for friends that had passed. I would see him at weddings or parties. He treats it like we were friends in junior high. And I still debate, dude. I'm still like, for the past 20 years, he's treated it like we were friends growing up. And part of me still wants to say like, hey man, like I really felt like shit and hated myself because a lot of the things you said to me in 7th and 8th grade, and it really fucked with my self-esteem. And like, I don't think you realize that, because he acts like, oh yeah, I remember when we were friends in junior high and you were really into this and this. And I was just like, dude, we were not friends in junior high. Very strange.
I have kids like that as well, where I was either the one being the jerk and saying negative things to them. But you can, I'm not excusing it, but you could bet your sweet, you know what, that I had 5 other kids that were up here, older than me, bigger than me, stronger than me, doing the same ish to me. So it's like this ridiculous cycle or domino effect of almost bullying, I want to say.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and now as adults, we realize that, right? Like it's the same thing. It's like hormones, bad home situation, even then, I mean, I probably wasn't in the best state of mind when I really liked where we lived in California, moved to Michigan with my mom, kind of resented. I mean, dude, you go from the Bay Area in California at the height of like Atari and Silicon Valley, and it was an exciting time. And then it's like Michigan, which
I'm in Michigan.
Yeah, it's super. But I mean, dude, think about Michigan in the 80s and everything going on with the auto industry decline. Like it was super beat in the mid 80s. So I think I probably had a lot of resentment over that as well. So looking back on it, just as we talk about it now, that thing with that girl was really cool. But yeah, I probably was trying to make my life a little more exciting by being like, oh, it's like I'm in a movie and this guy's out to get me and his friends are out to get me. And like Daniel LaRusso, I'm going to trigger the sprinkler and, I'll get him. Like, I think it was really just me trying to amuse myself. And remember, dude, this was a time in my life where I would literally on a Saturday and oftentimes on a Sunday say, Mom just dropped me off at the movie theater and I'm just going to hang out here and escape for 10 hours, like watching 5 movies back to back.
So one more thing, I'll give you one more.
Yeah.
I ended up fighting one of my friends, my good friends. And to get inside his head, I'm not joking, this is so real. Before the fight actually happened, we were such good friends, I knew his locker code. So this is how horrible I was. So I'm worried because this kid a little bit bigger than me, he's one of my good friends. I'm like, I don't know if I can take him or not. So one of my other friends gassed me up like, you need to get psychological. You got to get in his head, Matt. So what does dumb Matt do? Don't ask me why. Matt gets Jake the Snake Roberts wrestling figure and Brutus Beefcake. Don't ask me why Brutus Beefcake. And I put him in his locker and watched him open it and watched the 2 LJN figures fall out, and on the floor. I'm like, yeah, that's what's going to happen today. You're going to get DDT'd. I'm going to put you in a sleeper hole. I'm going to choke you out. I'm not joking. So pathetic, so embarrassing, but this is what I did.
So I've never been in a fight, but we did in our neighborhood. We used to have a wrestling league.
Okay.
We would always.
Hang on, and no fights broke out from that.
No, well, there were a couple times
you didn't get DDT'd between the mattresses, and the mattresses opened up and it hit the floor.
It never came to blows. There was one time where my best friend, I'm actually going to Cabo for his 50th next month. He would destroy all of us. He's a big dude, army guy. But there was one time we were wrestling, and I put this guy in the camel clutch, and I'm just like, yeah, and I look down, and he's like purple, and I'm like, oh no, I think I killed this guy. I was literally thought I might have like killed him, and just panicked. Like it was one of the most scary situations, and it turned out he was fine. He was out for a minute, but he ended up being okay. But a lot of these wrestling moves, man, you actually put a figure four on someone, it hurts.
It hurts. Yes, it does.
Boston Crab. Yeah.
DDT, guy's forehead hits the root in the ground. Of course, of all the things to hit on the grass, I find the root. Yeah.
I think DDT and pile driver, those are probably two of the most devastating real moves, like that could really
anything with your head in your neck. I mean, that's
or brainbuster. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember doing high school wrestling, and I think that's when I decided I was like done with physical confrontation. I mean, some of it was good to learn just about how to do like leg catch, or different ways to do like a takedown. Like there's some good self-defense stuff in there, and I was okay at that. But I told the story back when we did the Wink podcast. Like I weighed like maybe 180 freshman year, and my coach was like, dude, if you get up to 189, you can go in heavyweights. And I was like, no, that's insane, because heavyweights was everybody 189 and up. So you could be wrestling a guy 190 or a guy that's 290. And the coach really wanted me to do that. And I was like, I'm not doing that. That's insane. Yeah. But in the 189 class, like, or the 189 and lower class, like I had to practice against guys that were really bigger. And I remember just getting put in like headlocks, holds, and they would try and talk me like they would get frustrated. They were trying to talk me through how to get out of the move. Meanwhile, as I'm like struggling to breathe, I was just like, this sucks. Like I finished the season and then I was like, I don't want to get in physical conflict ever again. Like I'm good, man.
It's nice not having it.
Yeah. Quickly before we wrap here, I know, Raj, you haven't watched The Wrestlers on Netflix yet. It's a show just dropped 3 days ago. It's about OVW and Al Snow, what he's doing with OVW wrestling right now. Still kicking, right? They haven't been WWE developmental since maybe like 2010.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah.
Still doing weekly TV. He got an investor, this guy Matt Jones, Kentucky sports radio legend, and the show is a lot about the conflict behind the scenes. But then we meet the wrestlers that are there doing it. And what I thought was interesting, Matt, I mean, there's a couple guys that you probably have crossed paths with. I was thinking about Darkstorm. I was thinking about Cash Flow, and then the Indian gentleman who was in Impact for quite some time. Why am I blanking on his name?
Shira.
Oh God,
Shira. Yeah, Shira. Yeah. Matt, how is it for you? Oh, I'm sorry.
And obviously Al.
Yeah, Al, of course. But so Matt, you checked out the show a little bit. You have to have a much different perspective on this than anyone else, as someone who was in OVW.
Yes, because we had, it's not one of those, back in my day it was better because it was back in my day. But two different things are happening. They're supposedly, and I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly they're doing this to cling on for something, to try to get everything to get turned around with this company. Hopefully they can start making some money, etc. But as far as like having a television show, I'm telling you, if they had it back when we were doing it, and not even just for the obvious ones, when seeing John Cena as Prototype or Batista as Leviathan, forget that. That would just be like bonus. The real stuff, the real show would be centered around like guys like Trailer Park Trash. Yeah, that was the guy's name. Great wrestler, great teacher as well, by the way. Rip Rogers, and all of these just insanely over the top characters that were just so hilarious, that you can put a camera on them for 24 hours a day. Like you'd be very entertained by them. They're so funny, but with tons of them, here you have people that are very obviously playing a character, right? That's their job. So the bigger story behind it is supposed to be what sucks you in. Do you root for these underdogs to hopefully turn it around and start making that company profitable. I hope so, because granted, it's not the same OVW I went to. It's still Al Snow helped train me on Tough Enough after, before I went to OVW. And a lot of just the lineage that comes from that organization, I'll always, want to support. That's why I'm watching this show, for example.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So Raj, when you check it out, the most fascinating thing to me is that OVW is like just hemorrhaging money. They talk about they shot this all in 2022, but they had a pay-per-view on Fight that did 74 buys.
Ooh.
They go on tour in the series and they lose like over $100,000 touring the state of Kentucky, and assuming they're getting paid for some of the stuff that they're doing. But it's just crazy, man. Like, to think about the finances of this. And Matt, I mean, it's crazy to see Al Snow is so big on story and booking. Like, my first thought was just like, man, AEW should watch this and be like, Al, come in, you're our head writer. Like, because you're obsessed with story, you don't know the business, but he cares so much about the story. But what I wonder, Matt, is they show these wrestlers, a lot of whom I really like, and I think have a lot of potential. But you see like Shira, who's working a day job delivering Postmates, to make ends meet, like, and doing Uber and like his 2011 Nissan Maxima, which he's kept in excellent condition. But you see the struggles they're going through. I mean, cash flow, this guy's, came up with, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, a lot of people who are doing really well. And, he's still trying to make a couple $100, a night off merch to get by. Like, it's a very well told story, but I almost wonder, I guess I'll just say, I really wonder, the star, as far as everyone's called it out, and they have her in the narrative, is Hollywood Haley J.
Definitely.
But I almost wonder if, as they delve more into her personal issues and conflict and her attitude, I almost wonder if someone like WWE sees this and they're like, look, we find out about a lot of this stuff after we sign somebody, that they have trouble getting along with people, that they're drawn to toxic relationships. And we learn about her background, and I have all the empathy for her, for what she's been through with her mom and everything that's created some of these issues. But I almost wonder if AEW or WWE looks at this and it's like, we kind of know ahead of time what we're getting into, and this might not be something that's ready yet.
Okay, they could, but I'll argue she's the most popular part of that show right now.
Absolutely. She's my favorite part of the show.
She's what everybody I would guess is watching it for, mainly.
Yeah.
Because she has a very, very impactful and intriguing, like you said, real storyline in real life. But I don't think, normally I'd say, yeah, Glenn, I'd agree with you on that. WWE would want to stay away because of this and that and the other thing. Hopefully she's smart enough to be able to say, hey guys, just so you know, that's all a work. Like, none of that's true.
Hope
so like, any of that stuff you saw about my family and WWE, yeah, none of that's true. See what a great worker I am? That's why you need to hire me.
Yeah. And
I told America. Something.
Yeah. I mean, and people forget, like, Vince, doesn't really keep tabs on like other promotions and things like that. So my guess is he's not going to watch this show. I don't think Nick Khan, Triple H are, just with how busy they are. So
I don't know, but I think even though she's one of the less experienced wrestlers on the show, I think her character could do very well. Yeah, I mean, you can't stop watching her. Like, she's great. I think Cash Flow deserves another one. That's one where you look at his career, but then he just comes across like a really good guy. And then I think the anti-hero of the show, or the villain, if there is one, depending on how you view him, but I think it's Darkstorm, Eric Darkstorm, because like, he's one of those guys that, like, even if you find him unlikable, Raj, when you see this show, they've got a talking head interview with him where he's just hanging out the window of his beat up 20-year-old Toyota. And he's just sitting there like talking shit. And they keep cutting back. It's like, how long did he sit there just talking trash to the camera? That through the entire 7 episodes, like, this is the talking head for him in his junker car that's literally got holes in it, Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. I'll check it out this week for sure.
Yeah, it's really good. We finished the entire thing yesterday in one day.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
good.
My thing with OVW is, I mean, as a developmental league, it was great. You look at the stars. It turned out Matt, obviously one of them. Brock, Randy Orton, and now Al Snow, which he's doing what he can with what he's got. But at some point, you can have the stories, but you also have to have the stars. You have to have the charisma, and that's so limiting when you're an indie, and it's just there's only a certain amount of success you can get to.
Yeah. I mean, Matt, when you were there, was it just the WWE checks that basically covered all the losses for the promotion?
No, we made money. Our shows made money. So I don't know what's happened here. Yeah, because we had a deal with Kentucky Kingdom, Six Flags Summer Sizzler Series is what it was called. And that was like our pay-per-view. And we had Kane come in there, Benoit come in there, Cena when he made their main roster come back down. All these big stars. So they'd sell that place pretty well. But they'd also get a guaranteed check from the network, obviously. They did very, very well rating-wise. Like the ratings on there, I know Jimmy has talked about it before in his podcast, but I forget the numbers, but they're insane of what those numbers used to be ratings wise in Kentucky. Like at one point, Jimmy got Booker of the Year or Company of the Year, one of the two, over WWE.
Wow.
Because of the well-written storylines with OVW at the time and the stars we had. But as far as money making goes, I mean, yeah, some of them weren't always money makers with the fans that would pay admission to get in. But to my understanding, they were paid by let's say a lot of times it was just to get us experience. So the PWEs at the time sending them these big checks, keep in mind. They're also paying us as talents.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. So you were on WWE payroll when you were in OVW.
Right. Yeah. But not all of us. There's some of us that were there trying to get seen by WWE, and they were very, very talented, and then eventually would get signed. But mainly WWE talents were there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hell of a series. I hope it gets a second season. It's very interesting to watch. I'll be curious if this gets more eyes on OVW now.
I hope so, because you can't compare it to the old. You just can't.
Yeah,
they have a completely different backing on where they generate their income from. It's much different.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I mean it's a fascinating series. Recommended to everyone. I know fans of this podcast will love it. And it's kind of nice because it's been a while since we had anything like Breaking Ground or real behind the scenes stories about wrestlers trying to make it in this industry. I feel like, given world events and at the same time, so many people got called up from the indies. I mean, think about where the indies were 5 years ago, pre AEW versus now. Like it's if you're a true independent wrestler now, I mean, it's interesting because they kind of called up everybody that was ready with AEW. So whoever's left, you either have people like Cashflow that have been doing it a long time, that have been overlooked, or you have people like Haley J that are newer, that are trying to make a name for themselves. But first thing I've binged in a day in a while. So I recommend.
Very cool.
Cool, guys. Well, maybe we'll talk a little bit about next week after Raj has checked it out. Next week, Raj, did you want to do Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick?
Yeah, let's do it. And which one is better? And just Tom Cruise as a star, it's insane, his longevity, like the way he's been able to. I mean, he's older now than Jack Nicholson was in A Few Good Men.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, right?
It's just wild.
And also to the fans that are watching this right now, leave comments in the comment section on some ideas you would like to see us discuss.
Yeah, absolutely, please.
You guys usually have great ideas as well, so please just let us know what you'd like us to talk about as well.
We do have to do No Holds Barred one of these weeks.
Yeah.
Be a short
so
show,
bad.
Sure.
So bad. Maybe we could talk about that and They Live, because that's the superior movie starring a wrestler from the 80s.
Yeah, true.
And They Live, more poignant in 2023 than it was in the 1980s.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Cool, guys. Well, he's at BP Matt Morgan. He's at the Raj Giri. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein. Gigantic Pop is at Gigantic Pop. Please do us a favor. Subscribe on YouTube. Leave a comment. Leave a like. Leave a rating, a review, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for everybody tuning in to episode 3, and we'll catch you back here next time on Gigantic Pop. Take care.